Are you still running your business with one creaky old phone system? Missing calls, losing track of messages, and scrambling to keep up with your team? It's time to break up with the past and say hello to Quo. Quo is the #1 business phone system with 4.7 stars across 3,000 reviews on G2. Quo brings all your business phone calls and texts into one app for your team. No more juggling devices or being tied to a landline. Quo's built-in AI logs calls, creates summaries, automates follow-ups, and can even answer and route calls so you never miss an opportunity. Whether you're a solo operator or leading a growing team, Quo keeps you connected and helps you deliver standout customer experiences. Join over 90,000 businesses using Quo and see why it's the #1 business phone system for customer satisfaction. Level up your workflow with Quo. Get started free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/tech. That's Quo, spelled QUO.com/tech. And if you have existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over for free. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. JD Power ranks Sleep Number #1 in customer satisfaction with mattresses purchased in-store and online. And now the more you buy, the more you save on beds, bases, and more. Plus, get free premium delivery on any bed with base. Limited time. For JD Power 2025 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. Check it out at a Sleep Number store today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kilowatt, a podcast about electric vehicles, renewable energy, autonomous driving, and much, much more. My name is Bodie, and I am your host. And on today's episode, we are going to cover Canada's agreement to buy some Chinese EVs, as well as Tesla's decision to stop selling full self-driving. And we have some other things in there in between, but mostly that's going to be the show today. One of the things that 2025 brought, like there was lots of cool things that happened in 2025 for me. At the same time, 2025 was probably the busiest year of my life ever, hands down. Like, just to give you an idea, like ChatGPT gave like a wrap up of the year, and one of the things in my wrap up was like 2 a.m. editor. So yeah, I mean, a lot of late nights, a lot of missed family time trying to get a number of things, this podcast, other podcasts, second job, main job, trying to get that all kind of dialed in. And I need to kind of refocus and rebalance some things, you know. I try to get this podcast out twice a week. And this week I'm going to do 3 episodes to make up for the only 1 episode that I did last week. But like on Friday, I had an opportunity to spend a little extra time with my daughter because my son went to like a camp for the weekend. And so I chose to do that. And then on Saturday, it turns out, you know, my daughter and I got a chance to go to lunch because my wife and her dad went to a play. So it was just us. So we went to lunch and we went and played with some puppies, you know, like. I'm trying very hard, I guess, to kind of wind down some of the obligation that I felt for a lot of different things, including this show, my other jobs, and the other podcasts, and also try to fit in time with my family. And listen, my family's been amazing. My wife and kids have been amazing. They've been very patient and allow me to do, you know, all of the stuff that I did in 2025 meant that they had to pick up the slack, and they were very supportive. But in 2026, I'd really like to see them again. That's an exaggeration, but really, like a lot of my time is spent on the computer working, whether it's on this show, another show, second job. Sometimes my main job requires some computer work stuff when I'm at home. Not requires. I choose to do that when I'm at home. So yeah, so 2026 for me is a little bit of a refocus. One of the good things is I started this on January 2026, right? I started, or January 1st, 2026. I was like, okay, this is where the focus is going to go. And instantly, you know what happened? Is I was able to dig deeper into different subjects, especially for this podcast. You know, like we're effectively doing 2 shows. I have 9 pages of notes. I'm not gonna obviously read you 9 pages of the script that I wrote for this show. That would be ridiculous. But like, it's allowed me time to still spend time with my daughter, and you know, when my son's not gallivanting around northern Arizona, him too. But it still gives me time to spend time with my family. But also dig deeper into some of these subjects. And that's what I did today. Now, not every episode's going to be this way, but I literally, you know, spent from whatever day it was, I think it was Friday, the 14th, that Tesla, maybe that was Thursday, the 14th, that Tesla decided that they weren't going to sell EV, or they weren't going to sell full self-driving anymore. From that day to this day, I've been working on this show, and it's not been I put it all together at the last minute and then record, which is what I used to do. This is like I was putting together a more thoughtful show, and hopefully that shows, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. But yeah, I just kind of want to give everybody a heads up as to where I am in terms of the show, where I am in terms of my personal life, because again, it was my own doing. But I took a second job. I don't really want to talk about what my second job is, because there's things that are involved that if I say too much, it could ruin some stuff. And I don't want to do that. If you email me, I'll tell you privately. Like, I don't. It's not that it's a secret. It's just that it's the work is in such a nature that it could ruin some things if I say too much about it. But it's not like a secret. Like, I've told plenty of people who've asked, "Hey, what's your second job?" I just tell them it's not a big deal. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, I didn't realize this, but I thought it would be like a month of training. It was 6 months of training, just to the point to where I could start work. And I'm not even saying 6 months of easy training. This was like 6 months of getting kicked in the head with information. Just before I could start work, almost 7 months, really. So yeah, it was pretty extreme, but I really enjoyed my second job, and I enjoyed learning. But that meant that, you know, I still had to do all the other things that I was doing, and I just kept. I have a hard time saying no, so I just kept doing more and more things, taking on more and more things. So 2026. We're going to find a little bit of balance. I'm not stopping anything. I'm just continuing to do all the same things that I've done, but it's more of a balance. And giving myself permission to do that, like I said, I feel more free to be able to create a show with less topics in it, but more depth. And it's not that every show is going to be this way. But yeah, most of my shows in 2026 have been, you know, longer than 30 minutes, I'm pretty sure. And this one will definitely be longer than 30 minutes. So hopefully you enjoy it. But I wanted to give everybody an update. I do have some news that I could probably talk about now regarding the show. It's good news. But I'm going to hold off until I shore some other things up first and foremost. But yeah, things are... 2026 is looking very positive, is where I would like to kind of end this tirade. But, you know, I don't consider people who listen to the show to be an audience or listeners or anything like that. I consider us all to be a community. You know, I received an email right before I started recording this of a suggestion from Gene. He's like, hey, you should interview this person. You know, recently Bruce has sent me something on a person that something I might find interesting for the fire service. And I reached out to that person. I haven't heard back yet, but I reached out to that person to see if they wanted to be on the show. So yeah, I consider this to be a community. I consider it widely to be a collaborative effort. Mark sends lots of stuff. Like I've already talked about this last week, but Like or the week before, but there's just I don't see this as a typical, host listener type of a podcast. I really see it more as a community of folks that we're all better because of, community. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, that's my proudest achievement of this show, is to try and develop something that isn't a one-way communication, but multiple. And as a result, and this is great, but as a result, I get so many emails now. I'm very late in responding back to them. It's just, I just try and I have a day. If I have a day and some time, I try to respond to emails. I used to respond right away. Nowadays, it's a little bit harder to do that. But anyway, so I'm 10 minutes into this. So let's actually start the actual show, not the Bodie show, but the actual show. All right. Just kind of starting off, I'm not sure if anybody remembers, but back in 2025, Elon Musk ran a little department organization called DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. It didn't hardly make any news, and it was so quiet that I just feel like I have to mention it. It was to make the government more efficient. And in doing so, that particular group made a lot of people angry. And because it was led by Elon Musk, there was, a lot of arson and criminal damage and stuff like that directed towards Tesla and Tesla owners. I'm being sarcastic. Obviously, people remember this. But in April of 2025, a Mesa, Arizona man, I'm not going to say his name, and the reason why I'm not going to say his name, because one, it's easy enough to look up, but two, I do believe that everybody is capable of learning from their past misdeeds, and this person's going to be an arsonist for the rest of their life because they committed arson, but that's not the only thing that should define them. As they go forward in life, they have opportunities to make better decisions, and that also should define them as well, not just the arson. But anyway, Mesa, Arizona man set a Cybertruck on fire for whatever reason. He pled guilty to all 5 counts of, I think it was arson, but whatever the arson was in there, all 5 counts of whatever he was being charged for. So he owned up to it. He also sprayed on the Cybertruck thief, but he spelled it THEIF. I'm seeing this being reported a lot in as like, look at how dumb this guy is. And maybe they didn't know how to spell thief. That seems like something you should probably check before. But when you are, doing something that you shouldn't be doing, you might have, I can see why you would, switch the I and the E in this situation. But anyway, he pled guilty to all 5 counts. He's going to get 5 years in federal prison and 3 years of supervised probation after that. And honestly, I hope, he's learned his lesson. That isn't the only case. I mean, obviously there are tons of these things that go around that have been around the U.S. when it comes to either throwing Molotov cocktails at Tesla stores and all that stuff. I do not support that at all. I support every single person's, no matter if I think what you're protesting is stupid. I support every single person's right to protest. And I will not die supporting your right to protest, but I will defend you until my last breath to protest on whatever you think is important. And if especially if it's somebody that's close in my life, if they think it's important, I will tell them my opinion. If I think it's dumb, I'll say I think it's dumb, but I'm going to support you, right? If it's legal, and protesting in the United States is legal. But no matter what your opinions are, this kind of thing did zero harm to Elon. Setting a Cybertruck on fire did zero harm to Tesla or Elon. As a matter of fact, when this person got sentenced, Elon probably had a good laugh about it. I'm not going to say that he did. Just I'm basing this off of his public persona. There is a chance that Elon thought that this, was sad. So I don't want to make it into. I don't want to make Elon into some evil horn-wearing executive, right? You can have your own opinions on Elon, but based on what I know about his public persona, he probably thought that this person getting 5 years in federal prison and 3 years supervised probation was funny. If I'm guessing, he might not have. But what I want to take out of this, and I feel like I'm preaching to the choir on this, so forgive me. I don't think anybody in this community is planning on setting stuff on fire to prove a point, but like when we set things on fire, you could hurt yourself, and honestly, that would be awful. Like I have seen things through my career of people who were trying to send a message who end up hurting or killing themselves. And I'm not going to go into too many details about, or any more detail about that, honestly. I'm just saying, like, oftentimes when you're trying to teach somebody else a lesson, you end up hurting yourself. Not always, but in this arena, hurting yourself or killing yourself. You could hurt or kill a first responder who had nothing to do with the beef that, in this case, this gentleman had with Tesla. Or you could hurt a bystander that had nothing to do with why you're angry. The bystander might roll into that thinking that somebody's, you catch a house on fire, might roll in thinking somebody's in the house and tries to clear the house. And as a result, they're not able to make it back out. And they had nothing to do with it. They were trying to, save whoever was in there, if anybody. Another thing is, especially nowadays, there is cameras everywhere, especially on a Tesla lot. Every single Tesla has a camera, multiple cameras, and then there's going to be cameras at the service center as well. So, like, I don't know, it's very hard to get away with it. So I genuinely hope that this person is able to move on from this in a way that, they live the rest of their lives in a productive manner. And this one mistake that they made, and it was intentional. It wasn't like they did it on accident, but hopefully they're able to learn from that and move on and grow. So I don't know. On one side, they do need to be punished. On the other side is, do they need to have this scarlet letter on them for the rest of their lives and not be able to, because this person is in their 30s. Like, are they not allowed now to make a living because they made this super foolish mistake? Now, if you make a series of mistakes, that becomes a pattern.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. JD Power ranks Sleep Number #1 in customer satisfaction with mattresses purchased in-store and online. And now, the more you buy, the more you save on beds, bases, and more. Plus, get free premium delivery on any bed with base. Limited time. For JD Power 2025 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. Check it out at a Sleep Number store today.
One of the biggest challenges of earning a degree as a military veteran is transitioning your goals and experiences to your next phase in life. National University gets it. As a veteran-founded Yellow Ribbon School, they offer post-9/11 GI Bill acceptance, dedicated military support and advising services, and credit for your military experience. That's why 30% of their students are military affiliated. NU, education that serves those who served.
All right, let's move on and talk about China's or Canada and China's deal to bring down tariffs on Chinese EVs. So Canada, like I said, is cutting the tariffs from 100% on Chinese EVs down to 6.1%. And in return, China reduced some of its tariffs on Canadian farm goods and some seafood. And some people are reporting exactly what it is, but there's a trade deal that they did. Now, if you live in Canada, don't get super stoked just yet. There's not a ton of Chinese EVs that's going to be flooding the market. There is an annual cap of 49,000 vehicles, and most of these cars, the good news, I guess, is most of these cars are going to sell for around 35,000 Canadian dollars, which is about $25,000 US, which is less than a Chevy Bolt and Nissan Leaf, the newer versions of those two cars. So that's great. And the average cost of a vehicle in Canada is $63,000. So 63,000 Canadian. So this is overall a good deal for the Canadian people, especially those folks who are looking to purchase a really affordable EV. Over 5 years, that number can grow from 49,000 to about 70,000. Right now, Canadians buy about 1.8 million vehicles a year. So if all the Chinese EVs were to be sold, which I have no reason to believe that they won't be, that would still only be about 3% of Canada's auto sales. So, yeah, I think this is really interesting. I don't know. It says it's a cap of 49,000. I don't know after that if there becomes another 100% tariff that goes on that. I was not clear. It doesn't look like it. It just looks like it's a cap of 49,000 vehicles. So we'll kind of see how that goes. But yeah, it would be silly if it was like after 49,000 vehicles, then the tariff goes back up to 100%. Like, why would you even do it? But it's a good test to see how this goes. This will obviously impact America as well, the U.S. as well. You know, there are already Chinese EVs being sold in Mexico, and you know, once they start selling in Canada, what could happen is that the competition starts to heat up, prices start to come down, not just in Canada, but North America, because technically, from what I understand, is you could buy a car in Canada, and as long as it meets safety standards here in the U.S., you can register it here in the U.S. I'm not saying 49,000 EVs is going to be enough to really bring that down, but if that opens up, that trade relationship opens up more, then yeah, especially in Canada, prices will come down. Established automakers in North America, which I'm including all of North America, Canada, Mexico, and the U.S., they start to feel a squeeze. I've heard some people say that Canada is going to be flooded with, Chinese EVs, and that might happen someday, just not right now. 70,000 EVs from China is not going to flood that market if they're selling 1.8 million about cars a year. And the other thing is, if you're somebody that can afford a $60,000 car, and you're like, you know what, I don't really want to buy at my top end, you might buy a $45,000 car. It wouldn't be unheard of if you buy a $35,000 car and insert whatever currency you want to use here. It's not unheard of that you might buy, go as low as $35,000 for the car. But typically, somebody who is going to buy well within their budget won't buy at the very bottom of their budget. They would get a nicer car, a little bit nicer car. So BYD obviously starts at a low price, and then it tiers up from there. So it's still possible that they would buy a Chinese EV maybe for $40,000, right? But it wouldn't necessarily be the starter car at $35,000. So I'm just saying, like, it's not an apples to apples comparison to say that once a Chinese EV comes in, it's competing against a $45,000 or $60,000 car, because they're not going to have the same features. You're going to get a very capable car, if you buy a Chinese EV at the $35,000 mark or Canadian, but you're not going to get the same car that you would get at the $40,000 mark. My throat is very dry. Let's see. For consumers, obviously, this is exciting. For manufacturers who want to protect their margins, this is, like somebody opening up the cage at Jurassic Park, right? All the predators are out. That's what it might feel like. I think this is being made into a bigger deal than it is. It is a big deal. I just think that people are making it into a bigger deal than it really is. Just because that cap. If there was no cap on these cars, then I think this is huge news. And then it's not just Canada that's interested in Chinese EVs. President Trump recently spoke in Detroit, and he mentioned that he might be open to allowing Chinese EV automakers or just Chinese automakers here in the U.S. And, that would, from what I understand, like they have to be certified here in the U.S., but there's nothing really stopping them other than there's extremely high tariffs. But if we were able to bring those tariffs down, Chinese automaker Geely would love to be here in the U.S. They had a very big booth, not the biggest booth, but they had a really big booth at CES. They had Zeekrs on display, and let me tell you, the Zeekr looks amazing. The Zeekrs are not the cheapest EVs out there by far, but they look great. Being able to bring some different options to the US in terms of EVs or extended range EVs would be, not an unwelcome thing, just because our homegrown automakers are kind of moving away from that. Some of my understanding about this deal between Canada and China is that Chinese companies would need to invest in factories in Canada. And in 2024, BYD executives were seen touring some idled Chrysler plants in Canada. So that maybe there's a connection there, maybe there's not. And then in terms of just overall relaxing of tariff news, the EU is also looking at relaxing some tariffs on Chinese EVs as well. And like in 2023, I think it might have been 2024, but wasn't that long ago that they were raising tariffs on or what do they call them, duties or whatever it was on Chinese EVs, and now it's looking like they might start relaxing those a little bit. And of course, there's all sorts of geopolitical politics that go behind this, but that's not what this show is. But just in case you want to email me, I am aware. I'm just trying to steer clear of all that stuff because that's not what this show is about. So I'm trying to present this in as fair as a light as I possibly can. Okie doke. Let's talk about Mercedes. Mercedes has level 3 autonomy here in the U.S. and in some places, other places across the world, like in Europe and stuff. Mercedes is pausing their L3 Drive Pilot system, which offers eyes and hands-off driving in some places. There's certain criteria that needs to be met. It needs to be on approved roads, and the roads need to be around 45 miles an hour, blah, blah, blah. But they're pausing that at the moment. Now, the interesting thing is some people, have paid $2,500 a year to subscribe to this service, which is not cheap. I don't think it's also very many people just because of the few places that you can actually use the eyes off the road driving. But, yeah. In its place, Mercedes is offering a service that isn't as good. They're offering the Mercedes-Benz Drive Assist Pro, which Mercedes says is level 2+++. I don't know. They only use 2 pluses. Level 2++. My goodness, how what a horrible error of me. Listen, the thing is that makes me angry. Lots of things make me angry, but the thing that makes me angry on autonomous driving is there's no plus. It's level 2, it's level 3, it's level 4, it's level 5. That's it. Like it was level 1, I guess. Then there's like nothing. But there's no level 2 plus or plus for that matter. I don't know why. Like, you're not fooling anybody. Oh, actually, I shouldn't say that. You're not fooling anybody who knows anything, right? If you have a level 2 capable car, right? Just list all the things that it's capable of. You don't have to say plus. It doesn't mean anything. If it's capable of automatic braking and lane keep assist, and those are the only 2 level features that it has, then it's capable of, some level 2 capability. It's not, I don't know. It's an irritating thing. But I'm guessing, and I don't know this for a fact, but I'm guessing that it's probably similar to what Tesla's autopilot is. It might even be similar to Tesla's full self-driving, but it's not level 2 plus. It's just level 2. Anyway, we don't know exactly why Mercedes is pausing their level 3 drive pilot system, but we do know the company that supplies their LiDAR Luminar, they went bankrupt. So that might be why they're pausing it.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. JD Power ranks Sleep Number #1 in customer satisfaction with mattresses purchased in-store and online. And now, the more you buy, the more you save on beds, bases, and more. Plus, get free premium delivery on any bed with base. Limited time. For JD Power 2025 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards. Check it out at a Sleep Number store today.
All right, we're getting closer to our main topic, which is Tesla's full self-driving. Before we get to that though, we should mention that Tesla is, we'll say, talking up its next generation A5 chip. It's interesting because when I say talking up, I'm kind of using air quotes here. Elon said on X that Tesla was almost done with the A5 chip. Now, when I read this, I was like, well, that's interesting, because I thought that they said they were done, sometime in 2025. I couldn't remember exactly what it was. And Electrek actually points out that Elon said that the A5 chip, which is AI5, it used to be hardware, HW chip. They decided to use the AI name. But the AI5 chip was finished 6 months ago. So it wasn't finished 6 months ago. But yeah, July of 2025 is when he said that the AI5 chip was complete. Now, in his one of the most recent posts about the AI5 chip, this is what he had to say, he being Elon. Our AI5 chip design is almost done, and AI6 is in early stages, but there will be AI7, AI8, AI9, aiming for a 9-month design cycle. Join us to work on join us to work on what I predict will be the highest volume AI chips in the world by far. So that was his tweet. And obviously, it seems like that was a way to get engineers on board the team. It seems like more of a recruiting type of a tweet to me, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it was. But one of the things I found interesting here is not the fact that Elon said that AI5 was done in July, and now here we are in January 2026, and it's not even done. It's just close to being done. Almost done is what he says. That's not what I found interesting, is a new chip, like a 9-month design cycle for every new chip. Again, and this is something that that's an extremely optimistic timeline for a chip. And I want to be clear, and I believe what he's not saying that there will be a new AI chip every 9 months, because you have to design the chip, you have to test, validate that chip and make sure everything's, where it needs to be, make corrections. I believe this is a much longer process than 9 months, but it makes it seem like that there would be a new chip every 9 months, which would be honestly a huge waste of Tesla's money. Even if Tesla was able to ramp those AI chips that fast, there's no room to get a return on investment. You're just like, why not just, develop AI 5, right? And then whatever you're calling AI 8, make that AI 6, because then you have some time to recoup that investment into your AI 5 chip. Also, we're being told that AI 5 and AI 6 should get us to full self-driving. Why do we need to ramp up so fast after that? What is it that those chips will do afterwards? And I'm sure they're not going to tell us. But what is it that those chips will do after AI 6? If AI 6 is capable of full self-driving, that's going to make it that much better. I still think we need to continue to improve on those chips. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, what is your advantage in ramping up those chips so fast and getting them out so fast before you're able to get a return on your investment? Unless those chips aren't capable of actual full self-driving, then I'd understand why you would do that. But if you could actually solve full self-driving with those AI 5 and AI 6, what's the hurry? Is kind of where I'm going on this. Not to say like I'm anti Tesla progressing the technology. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying anything under a year seems like too fast for this kind of technology. It's a little bit different on a laptop or your phone, but people tend to keep cars longer than they keep phones or laptops. That's it. All right. All right. Let's finish up with we got a little hardware update. Let's finish up on the subscription only update. Tesla is ending. They sent out a tweet, or I think it was Elon that sent out a tweet. Basically, they're ending the ability to buy full self-driving outright, and they're moving it to a subscription model. And the day that you will not be able, the day February 14th is the deadline. After that, you will not be able to buy Tesla's full self-driving. And I just want to start off by saying that I don't necessarily think this is a bad idea. Tesla's continuously missing promises. And maybe it's not promises that the company in reality had set. Maybe this is just Elon's promises, right? Maybe there's a disconnect between what the company and the engineers think they can do and what Elon thinks they can do. But Elon's the face of the company, and so they're missing those promises. Those promises are not being fulfilled. And it really puts them at risk for lawsuits, which there are some lawsuits, and we'll talk about that a little bit when it comes to full self-driving and not delivering on the promise. But I'm honestly surprised there's not more. We've been promised that full self-driving was around the corner since 2016. And back from 2016 to 2020, I was one of Tesla's biggest defenders on this, recognizing that this kind of thing is difficult to do, but we're always not far away. Unfortunately, after 2018, 2019, 2020 came around, I'm like, you know what? We're not as close as we're being told we are. And that is borne out. I scoffed at people who were in the know that said it would likely be 2030 at the soonest that we would have full self-driving. And I was like, psh, you don't know what you're talking about. Turns out they do. They did know what they were talking about. And I didn't know what I was talking about. In terms of, does this make sense or not for the company? We'll get to that in a second. I want to talk about, does this kind of thing going to a subscription model make sense for the customer? So right now, If you subscribe to full self-driving, like the day you get your car, so you're paying $100 a month, day one, it'll take about 6.5 years before you're over that $8,000 mark, right? Now, this does depend on which country you live in, what that, kind of break-even mark is. Australia is a little bit lower at 5.6 years. Canada is almost 10 years. If you subscribe to full self-driving in Canada, you can own your car for 9.25 years, and you would break even. So if you owned your car 9 years, you'd still pay less than what Tesla charges in Canada for full self-driving if you subscribed. So my opinion has always been that subscription, even though I think the subscription is too high, is a better way to go for full self-driving than buying it outright, unless you're going to keep your car for that long. The thing is, right, is at year 5, if you trade in your car, you've paid for 6.5 years effectively of full self-driving, and you're not going to get 6.5 years. You're not going to get that money back. You don't get prorated on your purchase. If you, and then, forget about it. If you live in Canada, you got 4 years that you're not going to get your what you paid for, basically. So subscribing makes more sense to me. I do think that it was a good idea for Tesla to offer FSD transfers, because otherwise I think they were going to be faced with a lot more lawsuits. What I'm saying is I don't think they did that out of the kindness of their hearts. I think they did that, one, to sell more cars and to keep, some sort of brand loyalty, but also, that I think that just opened them up to more lawsuits. Now, in terms of full self-driving transfers, Tesla has said that you have until March 31st to transfer your full self-driving from an old car to a new car, and then at that point it ends. So that might be, if you're close on getting a car and you can afford to do it now, that might be a good time to do it if you have full self-driving already. But if you don't, buy it when you need to buy it. The nice thing that Tesla does with full self-driving at the moment, we'll see if it changes, but you're able to subscribe for a month or two and then unsubscribe. And they make that pretty easy. It's not like canceling your Verizon cable, it's or high-speed internet, whatever. They make it pretty easy for you to do that. And that's something that Tesla's always done. So if you want to use it because you're going on a couple long trips, you could do that for a couple of months, and then you can turn it off if you're not using it. I think that's a really good way to go for the company. And then you as the driver there or the owner of the vehicle, you can save some money and still get to use the service. And then for everybody who's actually paid, up to $15,000 for full self-driving, I do think you have a reasonable expectation to get what you're paying for. So I don't know, I don't know what Tesla's going to do after, we'll say March 31st, because I do think they need to make it right for people who especially paid the $12,000 and $15,000 for full self-driving, being promised that they would have level 4 or level 5 autonomy like that. Tesla needs to do something, and it's more than just swapping out their hardware. I think these folks need a refund, honestly, at least to the $8,000. I think, $4,000 or $7,000 or whatever it is they get back, because I think it's unfair that for a short time we had $12,000 and $15,000 and then nobody was buying it. So Tesla was like, well, we'll drop it down to $8,000. I just don't think that's fair to consumers who bought it. Now, in terms of how this might benefit Tesla is if they are actually, where they say they are in terms of full self-driving with hardware 4, 5, and 6, or AI 5 and 6, and they have that ability, this makes it possible for them to have a tiered subscription system. Now, I pulled this idea from not a Tesla app. The numbers, I couldn't remember what numbers were actually on there. So, not a Tesla app gets all the credit for this, but I just made some numbers up, not their numbers. So maybe for like current capabilities, or maybe slightly better than what the current capabilities are, you pay $99 a month. So you get this tier subscription service, $99 a month. You get the slightly better than what the capabilities of FSD are now. But if you want like the whole full autonomy version, maybe that's, $200 or $300 a month for full autonomy. Personally, I still think that's too much, but we're living in an imaginary world speculation here. And then if you wanted to have it for business use or put it on the robotaxi network, I think if you put it on the robotaxi network, it should be free, to be honest with you. But if you wanted to use it for business use, maybe $500. And Tesla at those prices is taking the liability when it's in the mode. Not when if you're driving, you're taking the liability. But if it's in business mode or full autonomy mode, Tesla's taking that liability. And I think that's a justification for them to pay more. Another thing that somebody, and I don't remember who this was that brought this up, another thing that I heard was pay per mile. So maybe you don't pay $100 a month, but anytime you engage it, you pay 5 cents a mile or whatever. Now, would that be, in my mind, worth it? I mean, if you drove 100 miles, it's $5. It's better than $100. So maybe that might be something that's interesting as well, and a way for them to monetize full self-driving, another way for them to monetize full self-driving. But there's not such a high hurdle of that $100 a month. Maybe it ends up being more than $100 a month, right? Maybe Tesla says, well, we'll cap it if it hits $100 a month, and then we'll just switch you over to a subscription plan. But I thought that was an interesting idea. Now, in terms of, we talked about a little bit, I said I'm not sure why Tesla doesn't have more lawsuits when it comes to their claims about full self-driving and not being able to deliver. I'm not a lawyer, so I should have asked Thomas this, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it. But Tesla has, from what I understand, there was a bunch of smaller lawsuits that kind of got consolidated into a bigger lawsuit. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I do think more, what's it called when a bunch of people get together and they sue a company, class action suit. I think more class action suits are coming for Tesla when it comes to full self-driving. Now, in terms of why they chose February 14th as the drop dead date, that date is because of a court ruling that goes into effect in California. And it's basically saying that Tesla won't be able to sell cars in California unless it changes the way it advertises full self-driving. I think I've proven that I am not a fancy city lawyer, but it does seem like Tesla continuing to call the service full self-driving and continuing to, seemingly, as of right now anyway, market full self-driving like they always have. I don't think that changes just because you changed it from buying it outright and subscribing to it. I do expect Tesla to change the way that they communicate about the capabilities of full self-driving. Now that there's a subscription, right? You're subscribing to these services now, and instead of you're buying these services that haven't happened yet in the future. I think that's probably the biggest problem with where Tesla is. And if it's a subscription service, it's not, they have to make sure that they that they lay this out, but you're subscribing to the services that they offer today instead of the services that they may offer someday. Whereas I think where Tesla kind of got into a little bit of hot water, and this is, I think, mostly Elon's fault, is that Elon was like, well, here's what it's capable of today, and he really pushed what he thought it was capable of by the end of the year. And that, it's not that it hasn't come true. That would be unfair, but it has not played out like he said it would. we're still very far behind, where Tesla said it would be in 2017, and here we are in 2026. So almost 10 years later, we're still far behind on the promises of going to sleep in your car and waking up at your destination. So that's one reason why Tesla might do this. Oh, and I should say that according to Electrek, the ruling in California about stopping Tesla not using deceptive practices doesn't require Tesla to stop using the autopilot or full self-driving naming conventions. It's just the way that they market what the car is capable of. They can still use full self-driving or autopilot. And that's important. Now, another reason why some people are saying, well, this is happening is because Elon's got 20 kids and it's February 14th, and that is Valentine's Day. I don't think that's the case, honestly. It might be something that Elon finds funny, but I don't know. I think that's a way out there type of I think you're drawing a lot of conclusions that aren't necessarily reality in terms of that. Another reason that's been floated why Tesla might want to move to subscription rather than a paid and subscription model is that it gets Elon closer to his $1 trillion compensation package. One of the tranches or steps that he has to be able to deliver on is having 10 million FSD subscriptions. And it's easy to make that connection of, they're just forcing people to do subscriptions so Elon gets his money, when in reality, Electrek pointed out that one-time purchases and subscriptions are counted toward that goal. So if they continued down this path, Elon would still get his money if they didn't have technically 10 million subscriptions. But if you counted everybody who paid for the service, then they had 10 million active users. Then I think that counts. So yeah, I don't necessarily think that's the case. Honestly, the take rate, from what I understand, of people who buy it are in the low double digits of full self-driving. So, we're talking, say, less than 15% for the people who buy. And I believe if you combine the people who pay for the service up front and subscribe, they're still under 20%. Right now, Tesla is like sitting at about 9 million vehicles that they've sold total since they became a company. They have to have 10 million full self-driving miles by, I think it's 2035 or something like that. It's possible. I don't think at the current price of the full self-driving subscription is going to get them to where they want to be. If they drop that price down to $25 or $50, then I think that, I do think that there is a world where they'll hit that 10 million subscriptions. But right now, especially in today's climate, like $100 was a lot of money back when they announced that they were going to do this subscription. It's even more money now. $100 goes less and less. Like my last day that I worked at the fire department, I buy my own groceries because I don't eat beef or pork, and it's just easier. The rest of the crew eats together. We still eat roughly the same time, but the rest of the crew eats together because they all eat beef and pork. I don't. So I buy my own groceries. The last time I was on duty, my grocery bill was $70. I got 2 lunches, 2 dinners, a breakfast, and then there was a little bit extra in there because I made pretzels. And if there's 9 or 10 of us on duty, depending on the day, you have to, if you're going to make pretzels, you got to make a lot of pretzels. So normally it's like $50 for me to buy those groceries. It was $70 the last time I bought groceries. So that's a lot of money, I think. even $50. Like when I first started doing this, I was able to eat better at $30 or $32 than I can at 50. So it's not, I'm not making any sort of political statements here, but if I had to choose between buying groceries and having full self-driving, I'm not going to buy full self-driving. And I think a lot of people are in that boat right now just because things are more expensive. So if Tesla dropped that price to something that's more reasonable, I think it might be a no-brainer for a lot of people. Me, I have hardware 3. I don't have hardware 4, but if it was $25, I would definitely do it. I could afford $25 a month, but I'm not paying $100 a month for the service. It's not worth it to me. Yeah. So from Tesla's perspective on this, right, why it might make some sense for them business wise is it's more predictable revenue. Subscriptions can be stable. So it's more consistent money. There's a lower barrier to entry. I'm not sure that by Tesla saying you can't buy it anymore, and you have to subscribe to it, I don't think that's going to get any more people to subscribe to it because it's still $100. But it is a lower barrier to entry if somebody wanted to experiment with FSD. It reframes the idea of the service, right? Instead of somebody shelling out $8,000, they think that they bought autonomy, right? They think that they bought the service that they were promised, even though that service has not been fully come to fruition. If somebody is subscribing to these features, the mindset might be, I'm not saying that it is, the mindset might be that I'm subscribing to a service that is going to evolve and features will continue to get better. So there's a different, I think, with a subscription versus a purchase, there's a different mindset. I'll give you an example. If I was to buy, let's say, Photoshop back in the day, before they stopped selling Photoshop and offered subscriptions, if I was to buy Photoshop back in the day, I would be totally fine with the product that I purchased, and it's not going to get improvements, right? Now, I think Tesla's a little bit different because Elon's promising things that the car can't do and might never do in its current configuration. So I do think there's a little bit of a difference there. But if you paid the $8,000 to $15,000, we'll say $5,000 to $15,000, if you paid that at any point in time, and you were promised the next year you would have full autonomy, you'd be able to fall asleep in your car and you would go to work, or you'd wake up at your destination. That's what you paid that money for. You didn't. I think there's a difference in that, and then saying, well, we're going to have a subscription. This is the service that you get now, and here's the roadmap going forward, but we don't know when we're going to add these other features. And if you don't like it, you can unsubscribe. It's a little bit harder to get your $15,000 back if you bought it on a promise and that promise has not been fulfilled. That typically requires court or some sort of mediator, right? So yeah, you just can't write Tesla a letter and say, give me my money back, because this doesn't work as described, as promised. So yeah, if you drive a ton and use it daily, then a subscription might make sense for you. If you just kind of wrapping things up here, if you occasionally use it, you might only subscribe for when you're going to have road trips, or you're just going to be driving a lot more than normal. There are people who don't like subscriptions. There's subscription fatigue. I pay for way too many subscriptions. I would much rather not pay for as many as I do, but sometimes that's the only way to get a service. And, people may never subscribe just because it's a subscription and they don't want any more subscriptions. Overall, I think this gives us, the consumer, it definitely benefits Tesla. And there's something in there that benefits Tesla that I'm definitely not seeing because I'm not a business person. but it definitely benefits Tesla. But I think the subscription itself, in terms of full self-driving, I'm not talking about anything else, but I think the subscription itself makes more sense for the users, unless Tesla was charging $1,000 for full self-driving and you could buy it, then I think it makes more sense, obviously, to buy. But the prices that we're currently living in, I think it makes more sense for a subscription than it does to pay the $8,000, which is the current price. But yeah, I'm sure over time we'll kind of see why they decided to move to a subscription. That may not be the real reason, but as people leave the company and things are leaked, I'm sure we'll get some sort of story as to why they decided to make the change and why they decided to choose February 14th. But all right, well, I told you this was going to be a longer episode, so the next 2 episodes this week will definitely be shorter. They will 20 to 30 minutes for sure. It does take like I said, it takes putting together these pieces takes more time. I got 9 pages of notes to read through here. But I do feel like I'm able to have time to adequately kind of, not explain's not the right word, but adequately talk about these things in a deeper level versus, the show's got to be 20 minutes and that's it. I got to cram a bunch in 20 minutes. So, all right. Again, we're going to go back to more realistic, more the typical show that we do, 20 to 30 minutes. But occasionally, we're going to have, just like we have interviews and special episodes, occasionally I'll throw in a longer episode in there because I do find this to be more rewarding. It's just a lot more work, and I miss deadlines because I'm trying to get this done. So, all right, everybody, if you want to email me, it's Bodie, Bodie at 918digital.com. You can find me on X at 918digital, although I don't really go on X anymore. And it's not anything political. It's just that I find that I have more engagement on LinkedIn. So if you want to go to LinkedIn, I'm Bodie Grimm, BODIEGRIMM. And 2026 is going to be a good year. 2027 is the year I retire. So 2027 is going to be an amazing year. Lots of things to look forward to, lots of good things happening to this show. And I will be able to share those with you soon. I could probably, again, share them with you now, but I have some other things that I'm waiting for those things to fill in before I make any big announcements. So, all right, everybody, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Thank you all for being patient. Thank you all for being part of this community and just making the show better. So I hope you all have a great week, and I will talk to you on Wednesday.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Hey, it's Raj.
And Noah.
And we're back with a new season of Am I Doing It Wrong? The show that explores the all-too-human anxieties we have about trying to get our lives right.
Because we're still doing a lot of stuff wrong.
But who isn't? That's why each week we're talking about the topics that we could all use a little helping hand with. Whether it's making new friends as an adult, managing our emotions, or even dreaming.
We'll be talking to experts in their fields who are definitely doing things right, so the rest of us can be a bit wiser and a lot better equipped to handle whatever life throws at us.
Subscribe now and listen to new episodes of Am I Doing It Wrong? Dropping every Thursday starting January 1st, wherever you get your podcasts. And
for the first time ever, we're going to have full video episodes on YouTube. Because as long as there are things to get wrong, we're going to be right here to help you do them better.
Love y'all.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.